Have a wonderfully heretical Blasphemy Day, everyone.
And what I'm frightened of is that they call it God's
love. For those of you unfamiliar with Blasphemy Day, please permit me to explain. This year, the Center for Inquiry, one of my favorite organizations, a secular humanist and skeptical and rationalist and pro-Enlightenment values think tank, decided to set up September 30th as Blasphemy Day in protest of the attempts of censoring expression contrary to religious dogmas. The reason they chose September 30th is that, well, this is the anniversary of the day in 2005 when some cartoons were published by a Danish newspaper that mocked Islam, and immediately there was a firestorm of attacks on their free speech rights from radicals within the Muslim community. And many Western leaders, rather than condemning this outcry and call to violence and call to censorship, instead condemned the cartoonists for their bad taste. This is not how things should function in a free society. You can condemn a cartoon, a book, a piece of expression of any sort all you like for whatever you deem its flaws to be, but once you call for censorship, once you say that the ideas shouldn't even be expressed in the public sphere, once you say that it shouldn't be in a newspaper, then you've crossed a line into the point where you are stifling free inquiry and free expression, the foundation of what makes Western civilization great, the foundation of Enlightenment values that brought about classical liberalism, brought about freedom, brought about the scientific revolution that gave us the advances we enjoy today. Yet, for some reason, there are many who attempt to pander to such a nonsensical approach. For instance, the UN recently passed a resolution that condemned defamation of religion. That is, statements that are an attempt to incite some sort of disdain for religion. And it's basically, the litmus test is whether someone from a religious group was offended by the expression of an opinion. It's an attempt to shield religion from criticism, something which no ideas should be shielded from, no matter how sacred anyone holds them to be. So, the UN is not on our side on this. And while they're attempting to put it in the slightly more progressive but equally oppressive guise of a hate speech law, what is in reality happening is it was pushed by theocratic states such as Iran, Saudi Arabia, members of the Islamic Conference of States, and it's being used to justify blasphemy laws in other nations, such as Ireland, for instance, which recently passed a law that would prohibit the expression of ideas which are offensive to any particular religious group. This, of course, means that you can't really express any opinions pertaining to religion because some religious group is going to find them offensive. I will have a link in the sidebar to try to help fight this horrible act of despotism and censorious authoritarianism that is occurring in Ireland. For some reason, however, there are those who oppose this notion of a blasphemy day within our own United States, which supposedly values free speech so highly. Naturally, they're members of the notorious religious right. People like Bill Donahue, head of the Catholic League for Religious and Civil Rights, and William Dembski, noted figure in the intelligent design movement. Alright, Catholic League President Bill Donahue stated, "The Center for Inquiry is factually incorrect to say that free speech is the foundation on which other liberties rest. Freedom of conscience is the first liberty, and it is inextricably linked to freedom of religion. It's also inextricably linked to a freedom to practice no religion, which is explicitly under attack by those who advocate punishment for blasphemy and heresy." There we go. Now, he continues, "Moreover, the whole concept of inalienable rights presupposes a belief in the Creator. In other words, atheists have the right to mock religion because our Christian founding fathers afforded them human rights." What? Let's see how many flaws I can find in this. I'm not going to be able to list all of them, but I can give you a decent notion. First of all, Christian founding fathers. Who wrote the Declaration of Independence, sir? Oh yes, it was Thomas Jefferson, whose most noted contribution to theology was the Jefferson Bible, in which he literally cut out with scissors the references to supernatural phenomena or to the divinity of Jesus Christ. Would such an act not be considered blasphemy? If P.Z. Myers did this to try and distill the morality of Jesus Christ without having the stuff he deems to be irrational and superstitious bullshit, would he not be deemed blasphemous for doing so? Jefferson would be accused of committing blasphemy by anyone who follows your peculiarly easy to offend approach to theology. Similarly, Thomas Paine was a leading intellectual influence on the American Revolution and on the philosophy of liberty. What was his most important theological contribution? Oh yes, The Age of Reason, a book which mercilessly critiqued and attacked organized religion, particularly Christianity, deeming it an insult to God and an insult to human reason, and instead advocating a rational deistic approach to finding God. Would this not be deemed blasphemous by many within the religious community, particularly Christians, and also including Muslims? I think so. So, in other words, atheists have the right to mock religion because our founding fathers of a variety of religious opinions gave all of us human rights so that they could express their differing opinions, many of which would be deemed blasphemous. So don't lie about that. Further, the notion that inalienable rights presupposes a belief in a creator is just indicative of pure philosophical ignorance of a disastrous order. You're completely ignoring, for instance, John Stuart Mill, who espoused act utilitarianism, which gives human rights as generalized rules because in order to evaluate every situation, you would need omnipotence, so you need to establish rights in order to have a genuinely functional society that works best on utilitarian grounds. So there, no creator needed for that. Then we have such philosophers as Ayn Rand, Murray Rothbard, Wendy McElroy, other deontological libertarians who start from various fairly easy to derive first principles and derive elaborate schemes of human rights and human liberty without any reference to some sort of authority. You're as bad as those who believe that rights are simply things to be handed down by a government. Only in your sense, the dictator who is generous enough to afford us human rights is not some mere mortal, but an immoral man in the sky. Oh, that makes it so much better on a philosophical level. But Donahue continues, "They are all such phonies. The stated purpose of Blasphemy Day has nothing to do with any religion but Islam, yet there is not one scheduled event insulting Muslims. We can only guess why. So who have they chosen to mock? You guessed it, Christians." Alright. Here's why we have the events mocking Christians. Because we live in a predominantly Christian society. So face it, mocking Christians here is just funnier. There's more stuff that we know, more stuff that we can make fun of, more stuff that people are going to laugh at. It's just a lot funnier. Do you think people are going to get obscure Quranic references, even if they would be well known to the majority of Muslims in this country? No! It's just a basic rule of comedy. But you, instead, have to go for your whole persecution complex that says anyone who criticizes your religion is obviously out to get you, and that they're being too nice to those evil little Muslims who are just so friendly with the liberals. And yet, you also criticize us for not criticizing Muslims, and yet you're using the fact that in all the promotion for this Blasphemy Day event, we criticize radical Islam and how it is attempting to stifle free speech, as though somehow that means we're being too nice to it. I'm afraid that you're pretty sickeningly paranoid here. Anyway, regardless of whichever God you believe in, by Occam's razor and current assessment of empirical evidence, your God is superfluous, and your morals are also not dependent on his existence if they are good, rationally sound morals. So, have a wonderfully heretical day. Peace out.